This is episode 39 of This Makes Me Happy. As we get ready for the new year, many of us make resolutions. For 2017, I want to challenge you to make resolutions that will make you happy. And I want to share those resolutions with everyone. So please send us a voice note to hello@thehappypodcast.com with your name, where you're from, and tell us what will make you happy in 2017. It'll be a very special New Year's episode. Welcome to This Makes Me Happy, a podcast about people and what makes them happy. I am your host, Bernardo Margulis. I'm a designer, art director, and educator, and I'm the principal of This Makes Me Happy, a design studio where I help my clients with branding and visual communications. I'm very happy to present This Makes Me Happy, the podcast, where each week I chat with a different person about what makes them happy. My guests come from all walks of life, and each of them shares their own personal happy stories. Join us every week for a unique conversation. Hello, today I am very happy to have Jason Zook with me. Jason is an action taker and he does a lot of awesome stuff, but I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about all the different things you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm best known for the I Wear Your Shirt project that I did for 5 years, where I got paid to wear T-shirts for a living, and pretty much everybody has heard of at some point because I just was somehow on every news outlet on the planet for being the T-shirt guy. So if you are like, oh, I have heard of the T-shirt, like I get that so much. It's hilarious. People are like, wait, that's you? I'm like, yes, that is me. There's a real person. It's not just a floating T-shirt who did this for years. But I did that. I sold my last name twice, which was even crazier than wearing shirts, I think. And then I wrote a fully sponsored book about it. Had 204 companies basically help me crowdfund writing a book about my entrepreneurial journey. And most recently, I have sold my future, which is just kind of ridiculous in itself. But as you said, I'm an action taker. I do a lot of writing these days, and I'm just really excited about helping people kind of find intentionality in their lives, get things done, kind of get off the sidelines of their lives and not feel like life is happening to them, but feel like they can happen to life. And that's what I'm into right now.
And it's something you say people hear about, I Wear Your Shirt. I knew about you through that, and I knew about you through the, what do you call the button that adds the...
Oh, Bump Sale.
I've heard about you from Bump Sale. It's like, I heard all those great things. They never piece it together until you were on Being Boss. And it's like, oh, nice. Wait, that's the guy.
My boss girlfriends, yes.
Yeah.
Emily and Kathleen, they're awesome.
And we had Kathleen... I was going to say a few weeks ago, but it was a few months ago. So it's
time
like
flies.
All the connections. So you said a lot of cool stuff, but I also ask all my guests, is there anything particular you want people to know about you?
I'm pretty tall. A lot of people, when they meet me, they're like, whoa, you're really tall. I know your question was not necessarily geared towards that, but no, listen, I feel like I have done my work selling all the things that I do through all my other outlets. And when I come on people's podcasts, like I just like to hang out and chat and have fun and, try and deliver any value that I can. So I'm easy to find. Like if someone listens to this and they're like, oh man, I want to know more about that guy. You'll Google me and I'll come up in the first couple results, hopefully, unless Google's put me on the second or third page, then just keep clicking the pages till you find me. If you get to page 3 and you haven't found me, just give up, move on.
But then you'll have to make more stuff.
I will. I really will. Like if you're getting to page 3 and you haven't found me, something's wrong. I think I'm up there for my own SEO. But yeah, there's not a lot of Jason Zooks out in the world doing weird things that index in Google quickly. So I guess that's a fun thing about me is that I index in Google well because I do a lot of weird stuff.
And you threw me a curveball because I was thinking you would share one of the 22 facts about me you didn't know on your website.
I can do that. I am obsessed with Cheez-Its. It's like I can't, if I open a box of Cheez-Its, you need to just move away. Like you'll lose a hand if you're near me. My girlfriend and I, like, it's a point of contention, our relationship. Like you just don't put your hand near the box. I also love Skittles, although I try not to eat them because they're basically just like little cancer pellets these days when you think about sugar and all those things. I have asthma. That's a weird random fact about me. I've owned 13 cars in my life. I was huge into cars. I was in a car club when I was in college. And before that, if you want to get even nerdier, I was into Dragon Ball Z. So I was like a huge DBZ fan. Funny enough, my username for my bank login is still a Dragon Ball Z character name because I just have I've been with First Union, then Wachovia, now Wells Fargo. My username has literally carried for 19 years and has not changed. And I think it's funny. So I just have kept it now because I could have changed it so many times. I'm like, no, this is going to be until I'm like 80 years old and you need to give your login to someone when you're going to die. And I'm like, here's the Dragon Ball Z name I chose. Like I just think that'll be hilarious. So I'm sticking with it.
That's awesome. I'm already happy with this conversation, but I'm
all right. And that's it. It was great talking to you, man. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you. Goodbye. I'm already happy, but I want to hear what makes you happy.
Yes. When you emailed me about this show, I immediately started thinking, I was like, I could go so many different directions with this. I could go a sappy direction. I could go like a motivational direction. I could go just like an escape direction. And so maybe we'll go with all of them. So I'll start with probably the person. So my girlfriend, Caroline, we live such an amazing life, and we have not always lived an amazing life. And I think every day we try and be super grateful for what we do. But I've just found this person that I can laugh with and I can have fun with, and we're on equal intelligent levels. Although, maybe I'm a little bit smarter when it comes to just book smart. She's got me, but come on, life smarts. If we're stuck in a jungle, you're picking me first, and then you're like, we might have to eat Caroline. I'm sorry, we're in, that's what's going to happen. I'm sorry. We need Jason to chop things down. But no, she's just she's been so great for me in my life and everything that I've been through as an entrepreneur, which sounds weird, but as an entrepreneur, when you're building your own thing, a lot of times it can feel like you're doing it by yourself, and it can feel like you don't have anybody that can relate to you. And for 5 years, I really carried the weight of this company that I created and all of the allure of it and the grandeur of it and people talking about it all the time. And I was really suffering a lot, and I was really burnt out, and there was a lot of things going on, which is not happy, but I'm going to quickly change the story. Don't worry. And at the end of it, I found myself in $100,000 in debt from this business, even though on paper, the business made $1.2 million. It's amazing how that works out with your own business. And Caroline was there with me. She basically helped me figure out, first of all, we're going to work on this together. It's not just your debt, it's our debt. And, then I also helped her in kind of starting her own career path with her own stuff that she's done. And she's just done amazing things. And cool enough, as of us recording this, she's launching this awesome new project in 2 days that I've watched her build for the past 2 months, which is just amazing. And I feel like I have this life partner that everything aligns so well with. And we just try and be really grateful and really happy about it. And at every turn, I think we're laughing multiple times throughout the day, every day. Probably most to the fact that I'm super weird. And if you've been listening this long, you can kind of already grasp that. I'm a pretty odd human. And I can't imagine any other 34-year-old that scampers around the house like I do. And I would use that word to describe it. I just do weird things and try and keep us on our toes and just try and have fun. So that's my sappy. I'm going to go with that one as the sappy happy. But yeah, so maybe move to an inspirational happy. And I think this specifically came to me. I woke up. It was 2 years ago, and I can actually vividly remember it. I woke up one day and I was like, everything is going well. Why am I not happy? I could just feel every day I don't know, something's not going well. And it wasn't the debt, because I'd kind of come to terms with that and I was working against that. It wasn't work, because I was still working for myself, creating my own things and having fun and, building an audience. But I just felt like there's this negative fog over me. And I just tried something that I kept reading about, and people were talking about miracle mornings or, morning rituals or whatever. And I was like, okay, let's just try one of these things. I like to experiment in life. I like to see what happens. And so I said, let me just create what would be a perfect morning for myself. It's something that I could do every day. Your perfect morning would be fly to Tahiti, get in the overwater bungalow, take a dip, get out, someone hand feeds you a pineapple that's been massaged for 3 hours, so you don't have to chew, it just melts in your mouth, and they towel you off gently and you get a massage. Come on now. That is my perfect morning, but that's not going to happen every day. So instead I said, what can I do for just 5 to 10 minutes for myself every morning? And so I realized the first thing was to put my phone down. To stop checking all the notifications, to stop reacting to the emails and Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff that when you start your day looking at those things, and even an alarm. So that's another thing. Like, I don't wake up with an alarm, number one, because I work for myself. So why? I don't have to. And it's a very jarring thing to wake up to. Like, I don't know who started that, but they need to be kicked in the nether regions because it's just awful. Like, it's a really just terrible way to wake up. So, I like to wake up naturally. And what I told myself was, okay, here's the ritual that I want to start. And I just want to stick with it and do it consistently and see how I feel. And so I called it Insta-Calvin-Hobbes. And so I could look at Instagram for like 5 minutes. And I love Instagram because there's no reactiveness to it. It's just people posting beautiful photos of things, puppies, landscapes, cars, people. It's all I see. I don't scroll through there and see a picture of Donald Trump. It's just not going to happen because I get to curate the feed that I see.
A couple of months.
Okay, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I could just unfollow everybody really quickly, and then it's like, well, it just is empty. I can't see anything. But so I did that. That was like, I would look at my phone because I am human, and my phone is next to me, and this is what we do. And so I would ignore everything else. I actually removed all the social apps off my phone for this time. Turned off the notifications for email so I wouldn't even see anything and put it on the second page, which is a great little kind of life hack. If you feel like you're going to it all the time, move the email app somewhere else, like second or third page. You'd be shocked at how less you want to swipe to extra pages. You'd be like, I'll go look at email on my computer or whatever. So anyway, I would look at my phone, kind of get myself up and going, and then I would go downstairs. I would either leave my phone upstairs or put it at my desk, and then I would make coffee. And I'd make coffee in a Chemex every day. I grind the beans right before making the coffee. I boil the water. Like, it's a process. It takes somewhere between 5 and 12 minutes to make coffee. And during that time, I found myself awkwardly standing in my kitchen just with nothing to do. And I had originally just said, I'm just going to be there. Like, that's going to be my meditation, where I just am, I've never done meditation before, but I get that you're doing nothing else. You're kind of in the zone. I couldn't handle it. Like, my brain was just like, it was swirling. And then I thought about happiness. So I really did think about, okay, what's something, because Instagram, okay, it doesn't necessarily make me happy. The coffee, it'll make me happy after I'm done, but I'm not necessarily like jazzed up to be boiling water and grinding beans some days, but not always. And I thought back to like something that just made me super happy in my childhood, which was Calvin and Hobbes, the comic books. And so I go back to the name of this, Insta-Calvin-Hobbes. This is the Hobbes part. And I remember I still have, I'm a nerd. I mentioned this early on. Like, I have Calvin and Hobbes book. I have every single Calvin and Hobbes book ever written. My mom has the majority of my collection in her storage unit because I'm a minimalist and I don't keep a lot of things, but she has those. But I have the collector's edition here that I got for my birthday a couple years ago. And so what I started doing is, while my coffee was brewing and I had 5 to 7 minutes of just waiting time, I would read Calvin and Hobbes. A 32-year-old adult reading Calvin and Hobbes, and it made me so happy. I was smiling ear to ear for these couple of minutes every day, not thinking about anything else in the world, not thinking about my to-do lists or my emails or anything. And so I stuck with that for about 2 months. I stuck with that every single day. I made sure that I did it, and it completely changed my outlook on every part of my day. And it just made me think, so many people get up and they don't give themselves time to just enjoy something for themselves. And, I wrote this article about this, and this is actually one of my most popular articles I've ever written. It got posted on Business Insider and a bunch of other places, which makes me sound awesome, but it didn't really do anything in my life, but I'm glad more people read it. And I kept getting emails from people, some who said, oh, this is great. I'm a Garfield fan. I'm going to go read that. Or like, I'm a Peanuts fan. I'm going to go read that while I make coffee or whatever. And then I got a lot of emails from people that were like, oh, you don't have kids, you don't know what it's like, you don't work in a 9-to-5 job anymore. And I'm like, that's just an excuse. You can get up 5 minutes earlier. Everyone can get up 10 minutes earlier. You can make the time for this. It's if you want to allow happiness into your life. And I chose intentionally to make time for it and to let happiness come into my life. And now I'll tell you, like, I still look at Instagram every morning. It's the only thing I look at on my phone. I still make coffee every morning. Some days I'll look at Calvin and Hobbes. Some days I won't, because I've built a better system for myself. I feel much better now. But this was a really incredible transformation for me that worked so well. It didn't take a lot of time. It didn't change my whole schedule or involve a lot of costs or anything. It was just a really simple thing, like going back to childhood, being in the moment with it, and not letting kind of technology distract me from being happy every morning. So now I've gone on for a while, so I'll take a break so you can say something.
Well, I'm taking notes as you're going. You mentioned you have a few different things. You want to tackle these two now, or do you want to do the list and we'll tackle all of them?
So I'll say my other two go-to happy things. So one is the Oatmeal. And if you've never read the Oatmeal's comics, you're either for them or you're not for them, because they are so weird and obscure and just crazy. It's the oatmeal.com if you're not familiar. And they are just amazing. He recently made something like $2 million launching a coloring, like an adult coloring book that was like not safe for work, which is just like hilarious to me that you can be like a dirty, and not dirty in a way that you're thinking like, oh, like porn stuff. Like, no, it's not porn stuff. It's just like, I think one of the things was like penis fairies or something like that. Like, it's just like so bizarre and weird. And like, I don't know, it's so funny, but I don't know. Something about it just makes me laugh. And I look at his comics, and every single one of his comics, I follow him on Instagram. It's one of my favorite follows on Instagram. It always makes me happy, and it's always fun, and it's always interesting. So that's one. And that's kind of my silly one. And then one that I found recently that I really like for actually like intellectual happiness is the Wait But Why blog, which they're kind of both in a similar vein, which is interesting. But waitbutwhy.com is just a really interesting blog. I think the guy's name is Tim Urban, I think is his name. Mm-hmm. I recently read his book, which started out as just a really super long interview series about Elon Musk, and he turned it into a Kindle book because it was so long, and it was mind-blowing. Like, it made my mind intellectually happy because I felt like I learned so much interesting stuff that I just never would have been able to find in a way that, you know, he draws these stick figure cartoons, and they're just so much fun. So those are kind of my go-tos whenever I'm having some moment in my day, or I get some bad email from someone who's just being an asshat, and I'm like, ugh, this really frustrated me. I don't want to feel this way. Let me go feel better about something. And I'll go and I'll read something on one of their sites, and it just makes me feel a little better. So those are my, like, I would say escape happy things, where I go when I just need to get some happiness in my life really quickly. That's in technology. You know, otherwise I'll go for a walk, or we live by the beach, I'll go down to the beach or whatever. But let's be honest, we're all on our devices all day long anyway. So you got to find your escapes where you can when you're sitting here looking at your laptop for hours.
We're on all devices all day long, except when we're doing technology fast.
It's true. It's true, which I have done. And I just finished my, I don't know if you read, but I finished my 4th social media detox. And I don't necessarily know that makes me, well, I think long term it makes me happy. I don't think it necessarily makes me happy in the minute, because I'm constantly fighting urges to go like check Twitter, check Facebook, check Instagram. But I do these 30-day detoxes, and I just finished one this summer in July. And they're great. They're actually something I recommend to everybody. So this article is actually the most organic traffic that I get on my site, this social media detox article, and it's hundreds of people a day now who are finding it. And I love that, because it's not a how-to article, it's not a business article, it's how to let go of social media for a little bit, because I really believe that social media is like our next addiction. I think that behind cigarettes and alcohol and drugs, social media is up there, and that may shock some people. Some people may be like, no way. The data is showing it. The data is showing that it is turning people into just addictive creatures. And I hear it all the time when people read this article, or they know I'm going on a social media detox. They're like, oh yeah, I could do that. I just choose not to. And you hear the same people when they talk about giving up drinking or giving up smoking or any of those habits. It's like, yeah, I could quit anytime. I don't want to. And that's a red flag. That's a problem. Those are things that, you know, we're going to have social media therapists here pretty soon. They're going to have to walk people through how to turn off Facebook for a day, or even just an hour. So yeah, those things, like, I really like pushing myself to do things that make me uncomfortable, realizing that there's probably something good on the other side when I push myself. And after my 4th social media detox, I can tell you now that I do 1 or 2 of these a year, with just some little breaks too in the middle, you know, like the weekends. Just be like, I'm not going to go on social media. I don't need to know what, you know, everyone's saying, what they're sharing, what they're doing. I can just live my life. I can be in the moment. I can be here with my awesome girlfriend, our dog. We can go travel somewhere. Like, I can just enjoy it and not have to share every moment of it.
Yeah, I heard that episode. I love how you, on your podcast, how you framed the episode before and the episode after, kind of like, all right, I'm not going to be around if you email me, and you just like completely disappear. Because I agree, I'm totally addicted.
Yeah.
And I put this, I haven't read it yet, but I put in my pocket an article about how social media, or screens in general, for children are like crack almost.
Yeah.
And
yeah, well, because think about it, their little brains are getting like wired to it, you know, and you and I think we're probably about the same age-ish, you know, within a couple of years. And we didn't grow up with that stuff. You didn't grow up with screens. You grew up with outside world. You grew up with TV. That was like the worst screen in your life, but it was really easy for your parent to be like off, you know, and it's a big box in your house, so you know when it's on or off. But yeah, I mean, you're you're so right. And I've read some of those studies as well. And I just think it's a really dangerous thing. I really do. I think it's more dangerous than people think, which is the same thing you can say about like cigarettes when they first started. Like everyone was smoking cigarettes, like, nah, it's fine. It's all going to be good. And then 50 years later, you're like, oh, how about cancer? How about emphysema? How about like all these terrible things that are happening? And yet we all just thought it was fine because we didn't know. We were completely uneducated about the negative effects because we didn't have enough data. And I think that it's just, if you just look at it from a very practical standpoint, it's just not good. It's just not good to be that attached to things. And the other thing that I've realized, and one like super small like tip that people can do right now is either delete the apps off your phone so that just like you put your phone down a little bit more and you're not connected to it at all times. And the other thing that's been really big for me is getting rid of the Facebook newsfeed. So there's a Google Chrome plugin if you use Google Chrome called Facebook Newsfeed Eradicator that you can find, and it's free, and you put it in and you can't see your Facebook newsfeed anymore. You get just like an inspirational quote when you log into Facebook, and it really changes your habits because I mean, we've all been there. Like you've been scrolling through the newsfeed of Facebook and it's like 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours later, you're like, what am I doing? Like what did I can't even remember what I looked at. Like I can't even, nothing that I just saw do I even remember except for maybe one stupid Trump article or whatever. And you just start to realize like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy when I'm just like blindly in here getting stuck in this feed of this like constant thing. So that plugin's been interesting for me, especially recently, because Facebook just has a really negative connotation for me these days. And that I feel like people aren't actually showing their real life. They're just showing the best snippets of it. And that's dangerous. And a lot of people have now started writing about it. The guy, Tim from Wait But Why, has written about it as well, that when you only show those things, and I know because I did this in my life, it starts to really weigh on you because then you feel like everything you have to do in all aspects of your life has to be that perfect shiny thing. And it's just not realistic. So that's my soapbox about social media. I'm sorry. I went a little bit down that rabbit hole, but it happens. And it made me unhappy. And so I made changes to take more control of it.
So let's twist that, because one of the things that makes you happy is coffee. It's a CalvinHobbes. I'm not going to go in order because I have a direct link to that. How did it affect your emotions or the way you think to go from being addicted and being all day long and then all of a sudden saying like, you know what, I'm only going to give myself 5 minutes for Instagram and then I'm going to read CalvinHobbes and then I'm going to do coffee?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. Like I mentioned, there was like this negative fog that I felt, and it wasn't in the morning. I never felt that way in the morning. I felt that way like halfway through my day. And so what I really believed would happen was that if I invest in my morning and I create a positive ripple effect throughout my day, and the first thing that I do every day is a positive thing, that is better than being reactive and having potential negative things kind of slap me in the face. And it's just, I saw it happen. I really watched it happen where I was waking up and, things were fine. And then I would start to go out on my day and I'm like, it just things don't feel right. And I started doing Insta-Calvin-Hobbes, and literally a couple weeks into doing it, I just felt better. And, I would still get the same negative things that would happen, people complaining about stuff, whatever it is, customer service issues that we all deal with if you own a business or even if you work for a business. And it had less of an effect on me. And I think it's because I had this like happiness battery, that was charged up in the morning, and it was fully charged up, and things whittled away at it throughout the day, but it still had much more of a charge. Whereas when I wasn't doing the morning ritual thing and taking time for myself, the battery started way lower and people could chip away at it. And then by the middle of the day, it was just empty. And I was too late to kind of recover. And so, yeah, this was like, I look at it as like an investment every day in my happiness. And what I'll say is that you don't have to do it forever. And I think that that's just the really great thing about the human brain and about habits and about all these things is you just do it for a little while. You do it for a certain amount of time where it does enough for you. It makes enough of a difference that then you can move on and you feel like, okay, I've kind of conquered those bad habits. Now I don't even barely look at my phone in the morning, and that starts my day off in a great pace. And then I can just kind of move forward.
Did you go into it with that mindset? Did you know that it was going to have this effect on you? When you tried
I had no clue. I just believed that starting your day off positively was better than starting your day off reactively and potentially negatively. And that was just a complete experimentation. That's why I said, I'm going to do this for 2 months. I'm not going to allow myself not to do it. And I just want to see what happens by the end of it. And very quickly, it just worked. And it was the same thing with social media detoxes. I mean, there's a direct parallel with those two things where it feels super uncomfortable in the beginning, but if you believe that it's going to do something and you stick with it, you quickly realize like a week or two in, holy crap, number one, I can feel the addiction. Like I can feel that I'm trying to go to this, but also I kind of feel better. I kind of feel like I'm looking up like, oh, it's a beautiful day outside. Wouldn't have seen that. I would have been so focused in my world. And so I just think that doing these things and having a little bit of faith that changing your habits, that doing something different, doing something for yourself that kind of, is for you and your life and is a slight improvement will make an impact. And yeah, I think it was just a little bit of blind faith and a little bit of just, I'm so open just to trying stuff and seeing what happens and then reflecting on it and being really intentional. And what really helped me, and I think this is what could help people as well, is, if you want to do a morning habits thing, maybe keep a journal in the morning and just, how are you feeling? And then like end of the day, how are you feeling? And do it before you start a morning ritual, maybe for 2 weeks, and then do it during the morning ritual for 2 weeks and then after. And you can really practically see, wow, those first 2 weeks before I started doing this, not so happy. My happiness scale was kind of low. During and after, I was much happier. So this is the thing I added. This is what works.
Do you ever take a break? You said it's not something you have to do forever, just for a while. Do you ever take a break and one morning say like, all right, I'm going to check all my Facebook and all my stuff and react before I start?
Never. I have not since that 2 years ago when I haven't had the Facebook app on my phone since then. Don't have the Twitter app. I only have Instagram as a social media thing. I have email, but I don't check it. And even at times when I'm selling something, so like most recently the Buy My Future project, I want to check that every day because it's a huge project for my life. It's a huge revenue generator for my life. It's really important, but it's not the most important thing that I need to start my day off. I shouldn't start my day off by checking money. That's just not a healthy thing to do. And so instead, it's just you really have to force yourself where you're like, oh, I want to look. But you know what? I believe in the fact, and I have the data from the experience. I got to go through my routine. I got to go through my stuff that I've set up for myself. Then I can look at the email. It's just got to wait 10 minutes, and if I just would have slept 10 minutes longer, it would have waited anyway. So it's okay. Let me just wait and see what happens.
It's interesting that you do so much online and so much of what you produce for your clients, for yourself, it's online, yet you have this healthy relationship with the internet and social media and all the different things. And to me, it sounds that partially is about intentionality.
Yeah.
And that also comes up from your different blog posts and from the different things that you mentioned, that you take intention. You took intention to pay off your debt. You take intention to have a healthy relationship with social media. Are you always that intentional with everything in your life?
I'd love to say yes, but probably not, probably not if I'm being honest. And I don't think, let's be completely clear to your listeners. It was not always this way. I was down a lot of different rabbit holes. I was obsessed. I was getting notifications from every social media platform. I had to know how many likes I had on statuses. I was trying to post stuff that would get more retweets or more likes. Like I was really playing that game. And then I just finally started realizing, like, what is the point? This isn't actually making me feel good. If anything, I'm just more obsessed about the numbers and the vanity metrics and all the digital pats on the back. And you realize that those don't actually provide you a lot of value. They provide you a very small amount of value in the moment, but it's not long-term value. And I think you're right. Like I've really honed this healthy relationship with internet and social media usage. And I think for some people, it looks weird. They're like, you take breaks, you do this stuff, but like everything you do is online. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Like the internet is the vehicle for me that I drive, that makes me the money, that does all the things. But I also want to park the vehicle in the garage and I want to close it. And I want to tell the vehicle when I drive it, I don't want it to autonomously show up every day in my front door and be like, get in. Like you got to get in. It has that weird, like angry voice, like get in the car. And I don't want to be controlled by that stuff. And it's a constant battle. It's always going to be that way. And I've joked with my girlfriend, who I mentioned at the very beginning of this, who makes me very happy, that like I feel myself like getting the urges to move to an island and be completely technology free. And, like I say it jokingly, but I really feel like it might happen even for just a small amount of time, just to see what that's like. Because I do get that there's so many conveniences to technology. There's so much great connection and things that happen. And I wouldn't be where I am without social media and the internet and all these things. I know that. But you also reach a point where you say, okay, yes, but I want to control it. I want to make the decisions. I want to, again, like put the car in the garage and I want to go on a trip away from it and just completely disconnect. And so I just started thinking a lot more about that. And I think I've joked with her a couple of times, like 2018, I might not be on the internet at all. Like I might just take a break and I might come back, with a vengeance in 2019. But I kind of feel myself saying a lot of this stuff, repeating all of myself in these social media detox and all this. And it's like, well, what if I go one step further? And what does that do? How is that going to make me feel? And how's it going to impact my life? Am I still going to be able to, survive and talk to people and have connection and not go crazy and like wear Kleenex boxes on my feet and grow out my beard really weird? I don't know. That might happen, but I think I'm up for experimenting and trying things. And as long as my girlfriend's okay with it, and it doesn't like hurt our relationship, if it works, like I'd like to try it and just see what happens and kind of be the guinea pig to see how this goes.
What do you think about that? Are you excited? Are you scared? What goes through your mind when you think about just taking off?
Yeah, well, first it's like, okay, what does the financial situation look like? I have to have a buffer set up so that I don't feel the financial pressure and strain, because that's what we all feel throughout our weeks, throughout our months, throughout our days. Like it's always there for all of us, no matter how much money you make. Like I think you think about it constantly, unless you're just completely set, you don't have to worry about it, which I don't know many of those people. Like I just don't know anybody like that. So I can't even talk to that. But yeah, I think if we were in a place where we were financially sound, we had a budget, everything was set up, like we're not going to, again, move to like a lavish island. We're going to move to one where it's like super affordable and we can do it and, make it work. But I do think that there's a little bit of me that says, I'm afraid I'll lose connection to the people that I'm close with or whatever. But I really feel like I would find other ways to make that happen. Like I'd start writing letters, maybe, like I can't imagine how happy my grandmother would get like a handwritten letter from me, like with some sand thrown on it. Like, here's the island I'm at, Grandma, and here's some sand. She would love it. She would love writing a letter back. My like internet friends, the people that I talk to all the time, that might be a little weird. But I think it's also like it would really show you who your friends are, because if you are gone for a year or 6 months or whatever, like who of those friends is going to actually take the time to try and reach out to you in the way that you are able to be reached? And that will show you a lot of things. And so that's a little scary, because you might realize like, a lot of these people I thought were good friends, not really. They're just we're acquaintances and we spend time together. Then the other part of me is just I love the experimentation. I love being the guinea pig in a lot of these things and sharing what that's been like. And so I really feel like there could be something interesting that comes out of this experiment. And I'm not the first person to ever do this. Like, this isn't like, whoa, Jason, how'd you think of this idea? Like, I've read other people who've done it, and that's, I think, what's planting the seed for me. But I think I would obviously have my own stories, my own outlook, my own experiences, that it does kind of excite me to think about, well, what would come of that? If I would write a book about it, afterwards, and what that would be like. Like, the whole past 10 years of my life has been so dictated by the internet and by technology, and has only existed because of those tools. What's it like if you go from hardcore that to nothing? The juxtaposition could be a really interesting story to tell.
That's awesome. A few years ago, I was in Madrid with my family, and we went to Toledo, and it's a very small town, I guess it's the way to call it, and it's gated all around. And I was like, what would we like to just move here for 1 year, no internet? I would serve tables and maybe document my experience and see if I can get a book deal or something after the fact, or just do a blog and just disconnect and not have to worry about all the pressures. But, here I am on Skype chatting. And
I think it's everything has its place and everything has its time for people in life. And I think it's very clear in just the projects that I've done in the past couple of years. Like, I'm the guy that goes to the extremes, and I'm up for that. Like, I like that. That's really what drives me. And that's, it makes me happy. I think if we're coming back to the real core of this show, like, I am excited about doing things differently. I am excited about the unique projects that I put out into the world, because it does give me the rush of taking chances and being risky and doing things that people wouldn't do and putting myself out there, and then being rewarded by that, or not being rewarded and have to figure out, what to do. And, so I do think that there are a lot of people who are in both of our positions where we think about this, and there are those few that make it happen, and there are those that don't. And I think even if you're just thinking about it, like, that to me is a little bit healthier, because it's just like one step where you're like, okay, I'm acknowledging these things, I'm realizing them. And then it becomes, well, how do I chip away? Maybe it's just the morning ritual, and I just do that for a little while. And maybe it's the social media detox, and maybe it's the giving up one of these social platforms where I feel super obsessed. But am I really getting any value for my business, for my life? Like, I don't use Snapchat. I started an account when it first came up, and I was like, I get it. but I'm just not into it. Like, I don't want to spend time sending pictures to people that disappear and like drawing penises on all of them. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't like, I could draw really like cool ones, but I'm not going to.
How many times did you do it before you gave it up?
Yeah, I said a couple. Yeah. But I look at it, I'm just like, it's not for me, and I don't want to be spending my time doing it. And I think that there's just this line where people, they don't even have that conversation with themselves. They just get on these things, they just do them, and they never reflect or look back like, should I be doing this? Is this providing value? Is this just a distraction from life? Like, do I need to do that? And I think that there's just a bigger conversation there. So, but I am writing down it's Toledo. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I'm gonna Google this. Because I'm looking for my island, and I'm
It's
scoping
beautiful.
out where I can go.
In a gated island within, it's about.
I'm okay. That means people can't send me stuff. So I'm gonna, my grandma's letters. Hopefully, my grandma's letters can get there.
Yeah, and some streets are so narrow that cars can't go through. So
nice.
Check it out. It's beautiful. I want to circle back to the other things you mentioned that make you happy. I'm going to go backwards because I want to save the best for last. Talk to me about the oatmeal and wait, but why? What about those two publications make you happy, and why you picked those?
Yeah, I'm deep into the other book that Wait But Why author Tim wrote, which is a recap of his 2014 articles. And I'm just really I love his outlook, and I love the way that it breaks down really complex issues and things, and not even necessarily like world issues, but like one that I just read about was like the 14 presidents that you probably don't know much about, but like, here's a bunch of facts and interesting things. And, there's like this recurring theme that almost all of these presidents, their parents died before they became presidents. And he just keeps bringing up this recurring theme of like, imagine what that would be like being a parent of a person going, he hasn't really ever done anything in his life. And then he becomes a president, and you never saw that. And that to me was like this little thing. And I remember smiling and like just what you just did. Like, I just laughed out loud at this thought. And so those are the moments in his writing that I really love and that make me happy. And then the oatmeal, it's just so nonsensical. Like, it's so far out there. His mind I find my mind to be a weird, crazy place. His mind is like to the nth degree. And then he draws it and puts it out for the world to kind of enjoy. So I would give you a favorite oatmeal comic, but they're all a favorite. Like, you can't go wrong with any of them. They're all so good.
How do you discover them? Both the oatmeal and Wait But Why?
Wait But Why was the Elon Musk interview. I saw someone share that on Twitter, which, thank you, social. It did have some value.
It worked for some stuff.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
That's how you and I connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Social and podcast.
Yeah, it definitely has some value, and it's all in how you use it. So, and then the oatmeal, I don't remember. I think I actually saw his book, the original book. It was something, I have it. It's something about like dolphins or something. It was years ago. It was many years ago. And I bought the book, and I just remember reading it like, oh, this is interesting. And I think in the back of the book, it was like, oh, check out my website at blah, blah, blah. And so like, I bought the book on Amazon. So I would have found it through a recommended reading or something. And so, yeah, that's how I found it. And I think I've just been a loyal reader, if you will, for years. And again, his Instagram is just really fun too, because he posts these like simple comics of things that are going on, and they just make you laugh.
My first exposure to Wait But Why was an article about artificial intelligence. I don't think
I've read it.
Oh, it's so good. It's how their artificial intelligence is going to grow exponentially to the point where it'll trump humanity.
Yeah.
Or possibly trump humanity. But the example was this handwriting machine robot that became so smart it destroyed everyone and everything. And the reason I got that article, someone sent it to me because I was working for a company that creates handwriting robots. So they were like, "Ooh, this is what your company's going to do." But it's
luckily probably not that far.
Yeah, those robots didn't have internet access, so it's fine.
Yeah, we just unplugged them. It's fine.
Yeah. Do you think there's a connection? I mean, probably more with the oatmeal, and I'm not a deep follower of oatmeal, so I might be wrong with this question, but they do a lot of reflection on technology and how we interact with it as humans and science. And Wait By Why also debunks a lot of our thoughts.
Very similar. Yep. Those are direct parallels that I think I really enjoy, because I'm on technology, I'm on all these things, and I'm seeing all that. And I'm actually not like a big science guy. Like, I was never really interested in it. And I've only recently, I think, since reading things in these types of ways that I'm interested, like learning about Nikola Tesla. the Oatmeal wrote this huge series, and I think it's now a 2-part series. And then he ended up getting like his fans to donate to like save the Nikola Tesla Museum. Interestingly enough, very aside, my great grandfather, whose last name was Zook, that I took after selling my name twice, won the Nikola Tesla Award in the 70s. Super cool, interesting parallel. I had no idea. Like, that was not something I knew until I started talking to my grandmother about this, which makes me kind of happy. But getting back to your thought there, yes, they do relate a lot with technology and science and a lot of like world issues too, which I think is really nice because we get force-fed a lot of news. And we get, it's skewed. There's someone behind there who has an agenda. Whereas these guys, it's kind of like, we don't have agendas. We just want to make it funny, or we want to make you actually understand what we're trying to talk about, which is probably a lot of what that artificial intelligence article was like. Yes, the funny handwriting robots are going to take over and kill us. However, let's also talk about what AI is. Like, what is it actually? How does it work? And you can wrap your head around it through his writing. And I think that that's the thing, that it becomes really relatable to understand these bits of information.
So you say you're not into science. Do you feel a disconnect with, or not a disconnect, but or a parallel between the way these two publications create their content and the way you create a content? Because there's a lot of thought behind yours, even though it's not scientific.
It's funny. I tried about a year and a half ago to do a daily comic every day because I actually can draw reasonably well, and it sucked. Like, I just didn't like it. I guess it felt like a lot of pressure because it was uncomfortable. And I remember my girlfriend pointing out, she was like, well, what's it feel like to not be good at something and be trying it? And I was like, no, that's humbling. It is. It was a humbling experience, and I didn't enjoy it. And, that I think is why I really enjoy the way that they put content out in the world. And it's why I really try and be thoughtful about the way that I build things and put things out into the world too, is how can I make this really relatable? How can I make this understandable for people where, sure, there's a lot of high level things, articles, studies, whatever you can read about this, but I don't like reading those things. It just is boring to me. I want to read a relatable story or an experience. And I find myself to be a very just normal guy with a lot of edge cases, right? But like a normal guy that people can relate to be like, oh, well, Jason's he doesn't come from a rich family. He doesn't have all of these, things that he has access to that I don't. He's just a guy that's willing to take risks and do things and then share his experiences. And so I think these other guys that I look up to, that I read constantly for my happiness and enjoyment, is that they're kind of similar too. They're not like PhDs and everything. They don't have all this background. It's just they're really curious people and they're really interested in this stuff. And that's what makes it so good. And that's actually why the book, The Martian by Andy Weir, why I think that book did so well, is because Andy's a really smart guy. He's really into space and all of this stuff. And, he didn't necessarily work for NASA. I don't think he has a PhD in any of this. He was an AOL programmer back in the day. And he just was really curious and started writing this story. And I think people could really relate to it and wrap their head around it because he told it in a way where it wasn't so scientific. Like it started to get there in some of the aspects, but it wasn't so over the top where you just felt like, I can't keep up. It was more the relatable stories and human element. So yeah, I not comparing myself to Andy Weir or, Tim or anybody else. It's just, I try and be really relatable in the writing or in anything that I'm doing and make it feel like, hey, I could do that too. Or, I'm reading this and I'm feeling like it's something that, really resonates.
Well, and there's something I think about the democratization of information that nowadays you have to do that. You can't just be super smart and, write a
publish
book.
Papers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was watching, do you watch Downton Abbey? Have you ever watched that?
I don't. I do always ask my girlfriend when she watches if Abby ever made it downtown, which I know is the pretty normal joke, but I just like, did she ever make it? She didn't? Wow, this show's a real letdown,
Well, the first season, I couldn't get into it. And then, Jason got me into it. And it's awesome. But there's an episode where women are talking about like, there's one woman who's a teacher and she teaches math, and the rich woman were like, oh, I could never do math. And it's, I think the idea that before you were rich and you had money and all this, but you didn't have to access information. And now information reaches everyone. It doesn't matter who you are, what's your place in life. You have to know all this stuff and you have to present it a different way, which is sort of what you're doing, or not sort of, but what you're doing, providing information in ways that people can access it. Is not just for the select few.
Yeah. And I think a lot of like, especially in the past 2 years, as I've transitioned out of like kind of crazy projects and more into writing and sharing my experience as an entrepreneur and things that I'm doing, is that I've really tried to look at from the fact of, you don't really learn how to be an entrepreneur by sitting in an air-conditioned classroom learning from a teacher who's never done anything entrepreneurial. Like that person has learned business stuff or whatever, and that they're spewing that to you. But that's like, you're not going to take risks in that environment. You have to actually do the thing. You have to actually show up and like build something or make something and get customers and deal with all the things that come along with that. And I have an article coming out that may or may not be up by the time this airs. And it's just the idea of like, are you on the field or are you in the stands? And if you're on the field and you're an entrepreneur and you're building and you're making, then you don't need to listen to people who are in the stands who are not actually doing those things, but they're criticizing you. They're bringing their things upon you. And I think that there's a lot of things that happen in the online business world or in the solopreneur world or entrepreneurial world where people think that they're running a business, but they're not. They're just writing a blog or they're just making a podcast. And those things are okay. Like I'm all for those things. They're side hustles, they're hobbies, they're things you're interested in. That's great. But actually running a specific business, it takes a lot more than that. And it takes a sustainable idea or a problem solving service that can do those things. And so, yeah, when we talk about like how those things are written, like reading business books for me is so boring. But reading books by business owners who have not gone the traditional path, who have done it their own way, who have done just extremely different things, that's so exciting to me. And it's so interesting. And that's really what I try and do too, is just to say, here it is. Like I'm laying it all on the line for you. And I hope that you see that this is what it takes. Like this is actually how you become successful, air quotes, if you want to do this type of thing. It's not going to happen just by reading a couple books, blog posts, or even my own blog posts. It's not going to happen with that. You actually have to get on the field and do the thing.
So I'm going to do a not so smooth transition, but one of the things that you've talked a lot about, or people you've talked a lot about, is Caroline.
Yes.
And I want to hear about Caroline, how you guys meet, and how did she become such an integral part of your life?
I hate giving social media credit. Back in the I Wear Your Shirt days.
You can't run away from it.
I know, when I was super active, but that's the thing. Like it served a purpose then. It doesn't have to serve a purpose forever. That's a good lesson. I got a DM from this female, and I remember reading it. And this was like in the days of, I was filming a YouTube video every day. I was hosting a live video show every day. I was basically spending 14 to 16 hours every day working and promoting a company on my t-shirt. It was a lot of work to run I Wear Your Shirt. And one of the things about it being so busy was that, the website got about 10,000 unique visitors a day, which is crazy for someone who's basically putting on a shirt every day and talking about it. And I got like 300 to 500 emails a day, which was just so many. And the majority of them, like 90% of them were people were like, I want to wear t-shirts too. And I felt compelled to write back to them to try and explain how I'd done this or whatever so that they could try and do it themselves. I should have probably just deleted all the emails, but I didn't want to do that. But anyway, I got this Twitter direct message, and it was from this female, and her name was Caroline. And she was like, hey, I'm the president at the Ad Society of the University of Florida. We both lived in Florida at the time. I was in Jacksonville, University of Florida in Gainesville. She was like, we're looking for a speaker. A friend recommended you. She said you do some talks. She saw you at a talk in Jacksonville, and she said you get a lot of emails. So here I am, trying to get you to be a Twitter. And it worked because my inbox was like just a mess. I could never keep up with it. And so I wrote back and, just kind of like joking. I was like, yeah, sure. I charge this amount because at that point I started to charge for speaking because I just had no time. So it was basically like, if you want to pay me for my time, it's worth something. And she was like, oh, okay. And she haggled me down on the price because she was an attractive girl and she was smart and was able to do that. And so I agreed to it. And I did a Skype call. Like I literally just Skyped in from my room where I did all the I Wear shirts at my office, I guess you would call it. And I remember, like, I'll never forget, her face was like way too close to the camera when she first turned on Skype. And I just was laughing. I was like, oh, like, this is awesome. Like, it's just fun. Like, it's a human moment, really. And so I did this talk, and I talked in front of the Advertising Society, not unlike any other talk I'd done, and finished up. And she, reached out to me after that, and we just kept in touch. And, from there, we just kept talking, and we had a couple phone calls, and I just tried to give her general, like, life experience, not advice, but just like things that I had done because she was trying to get into the advertising world. I had started in that world. And one thing led to another, and we started dating. And it was really funny because when we basically started to commit to dating, she then moved to North Carolina to take a job. So we immediately went into like long distance relationship time. And that only lasted 6 months because just the job that she had just didn't, I wish I could say it was just me. Like I was so charming and amazing that obviously she had to move back. But it was really the job. Like it just didn't fit what she wanted to do, and it was what she thought she wanted to do. And so she moved back, and we were, really close to dating at that time. And I was like, well, just move in. I have an extra room. Doesn't have to be permanent. Like, we don't have to make it a thing, but just get you on your feet so you don't have to pay for something right away. And then she never left. So she started working for I Wear Your Shirt. She actually basically wrote me a pitch to hire her when she was working for a company in Jacksonville and commuting every day. And I was at home putting on makeup and outfits and filming weird videos every day. And I say I was putting on makeup. She was putting on my makeup before she would leave for work, which is always just super weird. Maybe that was her happy moment. Every morning, I get to put makeup on my boyfriend every day. But she basically was like, you're overworked. You have too much going on. Like, I can help you. I can manage this whole part of the business. And I didn't have the money to hire her, but I was like, this is great. This is exactly what I do need, and I'll figure out how to make it work. And so she worked for me for basically 2.5 years. And then when I Wear Your Shirt kind of shut down, she started doing her own thing, and I really supported her in everything she did with that. And, since then we've just, lived together, gone on adventures together, now moved across the coast together. And I think we're just, we're great life partners for each other. And she always likes to bring up, she's like, it's just so amazing that we found each other, of all the people. And you think about that, 1 out of 7 billion or 600, whatever million, you found that right person. And we really do feel that way. And I think it's really awesome. And it's great to have watched her grow into her own entrepreneur, and she's got her own community and her own thing. And I've just watched that happen from, literally zero, nothing, dust. And, that's just been really fun. And then all the relationship stuff is really great too. We laugh all the time. We joke all the time. We make fun of a lot of the same things. We differ on some issues, just as all couples do. But I think we come back together on a lot of things. And she's really awesome.
And it sounds, both by your story and also just looking at your projects and her projects, there's a lot of back and forth overlaps. You support her, she supports you. Was that from the get-go?
No, I think it just happened organically. And there was a moment, and I think she's written about this, where she kind of had sidekick syndrome a little bit to me, where, she worked for me for I Wear Your Shirt. She was trying to start her own thing, and it was a little bit maybe in the shadow of what I was doing. And I wasn't trying to keep her there by any means whatsoever. I was like, hey, let's build you up. Let's do your thing. And I constantly tell her, and I think it used to make her uncomfortable, and I think now she gets it, is that I want to see her out earn me. I want to see her pass me. And I'll never forget, it's such a stupid thing because it's a vanity metric, but the day that she had more followers than I did on Instagram, it's so dumb. It's such a, but it was a little moment of awesome. That's really cool that I've spent years being a personality, being online, people have followed me, but she started again from nothing and now has built this thriving community and kind of following in her own thing. And yes, I've been there for it, but I'm not taking credit for all of it. She's done so much work, and she has been really intentional herself about trying to carve out her own path. And now I think we've gotten to the point where we were together with I Wear Your Shirt. We started to veer apart purposefully. We got kind of far apart, not in a relationship apart, but business apart. And then we said okay, let's bring it back together. And now I think we kind of run a close parallel together of things that we do, way that we do them, how we present them to the world. And I think it's just working really well.
Would you say there's some level of healthy competition, or is it just parallel and you support each other as you can?
Yeah, I don't think there's any competition whatsoever. We have a weekly budget meeting where we look at obviously how much money we're making. And I think in the few times where she's made more money that month, she's been ooh, ooh, and does a happy dance around the house. And I remember there was one month last year when I made $653 because my income is so ridiculously up and down. And it's crazy. And she made fun of me for it for a week. And maybe there was a tinge of ugh, wait till next month when I'm actually going to put in the work. But it really isn't that. And I think we're both just so happy for it. And we really had the revelation, I think, when we started to tackle our debt, that all of our projects are our projects. Whether you make them or I make them, it's all going to the same pot. It's all going to the same dreams. It's all going to the same places. And that's how we tackled the debt, was together. We didn't do it separately. We did it together. And that's been a big shift, I think, just for the financial health and happiness of our relationship, where money was a contentive thing a couple years ago. And now it's more of it's a game. How can we win this game? How can we beat this system, if you will, or get to the next level? And I don't mean that in 6 figures, 7 figures. We don't necessarily care about that. It's more just, how can we get a sustainable lifestyle and income coming that makes us feel really good about what we're doing?
Was there a moment, or can you recall a moment where that became a conscious choice to be that supportive for each other and build each other in such a healthy way as you're describing?
Well, I think a couple moments happened. One, when I basically had to fire her, and that's just like the way to say it. That's like so direct that you hear it, but it was really just letting her go from Ivory Shirt because Ivory Shirt was shutting down. And I remember having that discussion, and I think that there were two parts of her. There was the one that was scared, and like, like, what am I going to do? But I think there was the other that was really empowered. That was like, look what I've done for this business, and she's been a direct impact on that business. I can do this for myself. And she felt really empowered to do that. And I think that was one where we really came together. And then I think a year after that, after she had tried some things and things weren't going anywhere near to plan, it wasn't going as well as she thought, that we really sat down and we had like a hard talk on why she was doing what she was doing. She was starting to do some client work, design work, and she really didn't like doing it. And we just had like a really big heart to heart on like, how many hours do you actually want to be working? What do you want to be doing? Who do you want to be serving? And that was a big shift in understanding, too, like you don't have to do things a certain way. You can just kind of find your own path. And really, I just tried to give her the space to say, let's not worry about the financial side of it. Like, I'm not even making enough money to cover us so well that it doesn't matter. It's just, let's just take that off the table. Let's not worry about that. We will make ends meet. We'll put money on credit cards if we have to. Like, and we also cut back a lot. Like, that was one thing we did. We cut back on everything. And that, I think, really gave her the space and freedom to just try and to grow and to do things. And so that was a moment where I think we really supported each other. And then I think just recently, maybe not so recently, but, when we started to get close to finishing paying off our debt, we really just kept talking about, this is such a great thing. Like, this is such a freeing thing, but let's also come together and not get back into the situation. Let's make sure that we stay together in this and that we have constant conversations. And I think it's funny. We ask each other permission to buy things often, and they're silly things. It's like, it's really like I bought a Soma water pitcher the other day. I was like, hey, can I buy this on Amazon? It's $32. And she's like, yeah, I don't like the way the water tastes either in the house. And I'm like, okay, good. And it's such a silly thing, but we just like, we do that and we support each other in those things. And, I think we try to have a lot of fun with it as well.
So, a little play on words, which might be a little, puny, but you saw your future, and you gave us a glance at your future. But do you have a vision for your collective future for the two of you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think that I would really love to get to a place where I have enough projects that are making what would be labeled as passive income, but they've taken years. It's like when someone's an overnight success. Like, yes, I'm an overnight success. It only took me 20 years to get here. Like, I think that I'm putting in the time now and I'm putting in a lot of hours now that maybe in 2 to 3 years, kind of all of my projects, the cumulative level of them, are making enough money where I don't really have to be there. I don't have to show up. And I think that we can both get to that place, and not because we don't want to be there, but because I think we want to do some other things. Like, we've talked about traveling to Europe and living in Europe for, a year and being in different places, just experiencing different things in life. And I don't think we look very, very far forward yet. I mean, I think we're like saving and doing those things and looking forward, but in like where we want to be in life, 100% of the time, I don't know if we necessarily feel like one place is going to be the last place for us. If anything, it's like, we love Southern California where we live. This is maybe our home base, but we really just want to travel. We want to have adventures. And let me be clear, we don't like camping. So like, our adventures are like a little bit like glamping is what we would do. We want to do those things. We want to kind of stretch ourselves a little bit and try different things. But that's as far as I think we look ahead. And I think some people create like these long-term plans, and we just kind of create short-term plans, and we make decisions and we go, yeah, let's go do this. Let's take this vacation, or let's take this trip. And it might not be the perfect time for our businesses. We may not have all the money in the world to do this, but you know what? We could die tomorrow. And I don't want to live with regrets. And that's kind of how, for some reason, I've always lived my entire life. And maybe it's not the most financially sound way to do things, but we also don't overextend ourselves anymore. We make sure we have the money to do the things we're going to do. And we just try and have a lot of fun.
All right, Jason, I want to move on to the rapid fire section. And I have a few questions about the things that make you happy, and I want your gut reaction. If anything stumps you, or if there's a question you don't like, we can just skip it. But otherwise, just off the top of your head, are you ready?
Let's do it. Yes.
Do you have a happy place?
I guess I would say the beach. Beach is my happy place.
Who is the happiest person you know?
let me think about this. Who was it? There was actually somebody. Hold on. I'm gonna like find this real quick. Someone sent me an email. And Michael Gebbin, my buddy Michael Gebbin, he does a bunch of videography stuff. He's got a thing called Jumpstarter. Every picture I've ever seen of Michael that he's sent me on my phone, on the internet, is thumbs up, smiling, like, got to be the happiest person I know.
When are you the happiest?
Probably when I'm putting something out into the world that's different or scary or unique, and I'm getting rewarded by positive comments, people buying the thing, people talking about it in a way where I had hoped that would happen. I would say with my girlfriend, but let's be honest, that's very happy. But I think that's where I'm like, this is where I'm getting the most kind of physical dopamine response from it.
And what is the first happy moment you can remember?
Oh man, we're getting into childhood stuff. Honestly, probably reading Calvin and Hobbes as a kid, like as far back as I can remember, sitting in my attic that I used to live in, and my mom didn't keep me in the attic. It was a furnished attic. Don't worry.
No flowers like, in the attic.
No. And then like flipping open a comic book as like maybe like an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old, like reading through and just like giggling as a kid, thinking I was Calvin, basically. Do
you remember how you first encountered Calvin and Hobbes?
I think my mom just bought me a book, like bought me a comic book. I think she'd probably seen it or even maybe I saw it in the paper. Like she showed me the comic in the paper, like, oh, this is a lot like you as a kid. And, I just really resonated with it.
So I know you said that you're not here to sell anything, but if people want to find you or if they want to know about the stuff you do, where can we find you?
Easiest place is probably just jasondoesstuff.com. I do a lot of stuff, and that domain seemed very appropriate to all the things that I do. So that's where all my weekly writing goes. I've got a newsletter if you want to sign up for it, if that's your thing. And yeah, all my new projects get shared there, and that's the hub for me on the internet. It's my little virtual home.
Wonderful. And I'll make sure to link to that. And also the podcast, because I think the podcast is awesome.
Thank you.
And I've been containing this the whole conversation, but in the latest episode, Caroline was talking about how you have a goatee and she was like petting it. And I'm like, you jumped on the call and I'm seeing you with a goatee. I'm like, all right, Caroline petting the goatee. Caroline petting a goatee.
The visual, you can put the visual together. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this goatee. Like, I really don't know, but I'm just kind of like, whatever, let's see how this goes. It's different. It's interesting. So yeah, that's what I'm rolling with. So I'm glad you got to enjoy that visual.
I did. And now, now I can just get it out of my system. And it's like, all right, yes. I saw the goatee that Caroline spoke about during the episode that I heard yesterday morning.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed the podcast too.
I do. And thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jason, for sharing what makes you happy. After listening to your podcast for a while, it was great to be able to chat with you. I want to invite everyone to share what will make you happy in 2017 for our New Year's episode. Don't forget to send us a voice message to hello@thehappypodcast.com with your name, where you're from, and what will make you happy in 2017. Thanks everyone for listening, and a special thanks to Jason Zook for ending this episode, to Orly Margulies for help with social media, and Rocio Castañeda for ongoing support. Don't forget, you can get notes for this episode at thehappypodcast.com/episode 39, and you can get more information about this project or get in touch with us through thehappypodcast.com. We're on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Happy Podcast, and you can get our latest episodes on YouTube, youtube.com/thehappypodcast. If you like the show, please go to iTunes and subscribe, and you will get weekly episodes on your device. And if you go to iTunes and give us a 5-star review, more people can find out about this project. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.